Hello, everyone. I'm going to sit down here with you all. Welcome to Beyond Baroque. My name is Ivan Salinas, and I'm the program's coordinator. We're a nonprofit literary arts organization dedicated to the possibilities of language, established here in Venice Beach, California in 1968. And the organization started out as an experimental literary magazine and evolved into the art space that you see now. We're dedicated to the artistic possibilities of language, offering readings, writing workshops, and gallery exhibitions year-round. I'd like to acknowledge Beyond Baroque's presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous communities through colonialism and genocidal practices. And as an arts organization, we're committed to uplifting their communities and artists. I invite everyone to check out our calendar of events, as well as our free workshops in fiction and poetry. They happen every week, every Monday and Wednesday on Zoom. And more info is available on our website. We'll be going a bit on holiday break for the next couple of weeks, but we'll be back with programming on January 13, kicking off the year with a poetry reading by Nathan McLean, who will be joined by a few other poets. And on January 21, we'll be having our poet in residence, Will Alexander, present his new book published by City Lights, Divine Blue Light. He'll be joined in conversation by another legendary icon, Kamau Daud. And also on January 28, we'll be having more of an interdisciplinary series curated by poet from Venice as well, Daniel Tiffany. So be on the lookout for those events on our website. Thank you to our authors tonight. It's been great staying in contact with Leonora, with Farnaz, and Lisa to make this event happen. I first met Leonora through a reading that we did virtually back in February of this year, thanks to another poet colleague of ours, Parchita Poet, aka Lisbeth Koyman. And Lisbeth invited Leonora to be part of that reading, which was called Sin Vergüenza. And it was a bilingual reading. And from there, that's when I first heard of Study of the Raft and all the poems that are included in that beautiful debut collection, right? So it's great to have a San Diego poet with us and Bay Area poets as well. So hope you're excited as we are to hear some of their poetry. And after the reading, they'll be sitting here. After the reading, it'll be an open Q&A. So hope you have some questions ready for our authors. So just to present all of them formally, read their bios. Farnaz Fatemi is an Iranian-American poet, editor, and writing teacher. She is a founding member of the Hive Poetry Collective in Santa Cruz. Her book, Sister Tongue, was published in September 2022, and it won the 2021 Stan and Tom Wick Poetry Prize, selected by Tracy K. Smith, and received a star review from Publishers Weekly. Lisa Allen Ortiz is the author of two poetry collections, STEM, winner of the 2021 Idaho Prize, and Guide to the Exhibit, winner of the 2016 Perugia Press Prize. Her poems have appeared in Beloit Poetry Review, Colorado Review, and the Literary Review. She is a co-translator with Sara Rivera of The Blinding Star, selected poems of Blanca Varela, which won the 2022 California Book Award for Poetry and Translation. She is co-founder and chair of the American Listening Project. And Leonora Simonovis is the author of Study of the Raft, winner of the 2021 Colorado Prize for Poetry, and honorable mention recipient for the 2022 International Latino Book Awards. Her work has appeared in River Mouth Review, Verse Daily, Poetry Journal, and many more. She has been the recipient of fellowships from Women Who Submit, VONA, and the Poetry Foundation. A Venezuelan-American poet, Leonora grew up in Caracas, Venezuela, and currently lives in San Diego, where she teaches Latin American literature and creative writing in Spanish at the University of San Diego. So please welcome Leo, Farnaz, and Lisa. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here today. So we are going to read a little bit differently today, rather than having each person read, and then the next person follows. We're going to have a braided reading. So what that means is that we are dividing this reading into sections, and we're going to read a poem for each section, and then pause while we, kind of process, while you process, and then we'll continue. So we will start at the beginning with maps. In the beginning, we were yellow, brown, blue, black stalks, teeth clattering for wind, ground with mortar and pestle, scattered into ocean. No snake in this story, no body to tempt an exile. On the seventh day, the river spruced like drumskin. We are children of corn and fish bones, cleaved by starlight and spit, thousands of years tall and still untamed. Our homes taken, we dream the pestle as mortar. Our mothers' hips carry the embers of dawn. Their hands yield the sweetest dough, cradle our faces, brush crumbs off our lips. We eat so we remember how bodies are sharpened, wrought. We wring stories out of the sea that was river. They shapeshift into kernels, rewrite themselves in orbit. For a moment, words hover at the edge of consciousness. For a moment, we are a sketch of our own making.
Later, I learned to speak without a tongue. But first I wrote backwards. First I learned to breathe without my throat. Once my teeth chattered alphabets and people sat in rows to hear me speak. Later, I wrote on paper and the paper cut itself to emptiness. Later, I sat alone in the pew. Once I chanted into the empty nests of finches. Once a cathedral grew in the meadow, crowns of flowers on the skulls of deer. Before that, I had children. After that, everything I loved became a whole. I lay down and shouted names into the dirt. After that, eyes grew upon my heart, and all those eyes grew hearts, and those hearts and eyes were trapped inside me in the dark. Later, the children will come back and will swim moonlit in the river. Later, an emptiness will swallow me in whole. After that, I will turn to grass.
Untranslated. In the silence of my girlhood, spoons clattered in glasses of tea. The squeak of the front door closing. I was the child I'd never have. I listened for clues. I spoke without saying a thing. I made sounds to fill the spaces I could see around everyone. My teeth and eyes gleamed, faces open, a flower, as if to say to these people, speak, say things I understand. Their untranslated words whoosh by, an autumn gust. Staticky din of English and Farsi with afternoon fruit and cookies, my lips mouthing along with them to pay attention as I wrote their stories in my head, rearranged the letters into meaning. I heard the squished sounds of a heartbeat in a stethoscope, pump and thrum. In the languages of women I could have been, I felt both lonely and contained. We were chadorless, light-skinned. All the women who disappeared into the silence inside me, I pull from the roar of the past. I make introductions, by which I mean I want the foreigner in me to meet the foreigner in me. We shared our our books with each other, and they started talking to each other. And we thought how we wanted to share that in this space, so hope you hear it too.
You hear it more out loud. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. When I am 11. When I am 11, the 6 o'clock news says the American hostages are still captive in Iran, going on 300 days, then 4. When I am 11, my name hasn't stopped being my name. I feel guilty, unpronounceable. When I am 11, I wonder why my parents came here, why they had their children in a foreign land, hostages of this place, though I understand it is supposed to be my place. And why did they leave us without a good map? When I am 11, my sister and I are listening to Casey Kasem's American Top 40 on Sunday mornings, trying to anchor ourselves in pop. When I am 11, we have school clothes money. I buy a cream-colored shirt, which comes with a narrow burgundy tie, which I find in the girls' section of a store. Some kids tease me for wearing it the day we take the class picture, and I never wear it again. When I am 11, I don't know about the girlfriend I'll have in college who will want me in a tie so bad she'll buy me one in tomato red silk. I think one day my life will be different, but when I am 11, I don't understand I can change it. So I stare at my feet when the girls I call my friends throw kickballs at me, and I don't think of names to call back when they say Iranian freak, and I don't tell my mother or my sister or anyone else about it. When I am 11, I learn I can get to the ocean on the number 8 bus down Carlisle, cross Ocean Avenue and PCH, find a spot on the deep and long patch of beach around Lifeguard Station 8, read a book, and let the sun cook baby oil into my browning skin. There, between the pages and the waves, I learn how to walk out and dive under. I let some take me, and I let some knock me down, and I see sometimes what it means to let go of who I think I am.
I like that poem more every time. The seed experiment. Raining outside, and he called me in. I was seed, I was bean, I was shucked from my hull. A seed nods in the dark, and you best plant your bean belly down if you want it to grow. He finished, and outside, wet branches, wet ground, my wet friends waiting under the tarp. We were all the same. We knew where each one had been. Only we didn't have words for that kind of sin. Only we had words for part of the world we were in. Only we knew nothing could grow in the dark but wet things, only ferns, only moss. Kept in the barn, only this, bags, boxes, rusted tools for digging in. Only we copied verses about birds, only verses with fields and lilies. If you only had faith like a mustard seed, we knew angels and devils could cling to our shoulders and knees, but we didn't know why. Devils, I guessed, were on me. Wet devils, like wet mud, though I wished only for angels dry as burrs in my hair. Bird wings, summer, the epicaudal, the hypocaudal, the chart I made about my seed in its cup. The rain and the windowsill, the way the sprout comes out with the seed still attached at the neck. Looks like a lady's head tilting back. We measured how tall. We wrote on our cards. Some beans wouldn't grow. They were rotten inside. We wrote that down too.
Circus. A man once held a gun to my stomach, his eyes looking beyond. As a kid, I watched a trainer prod an elephant's body into submission with an electric rod. Another put his head inside a lion's maw. the creature's eyes as unnerved as the man who held his gun tight against my stomach, trembling like the elephant's feet while balanced on a tiny block, like the lion as he smelled fresh prey he couldn't touch. In my dreams, I see not the glassy look of animals, but an eye, a finger, a trigger. A body can only hold so much before it lets it all go.
I think you. Oh no, Farnaz, sorry.
Judith, right?
Oh, gosh, sorry, it was me. I was like, Judith beheading Holofernes from the Caravaggio painting, not the one on the cover. What gore comes up when I type it in? I spread Judith wide between thumb and finger. I'm reflected in screen, afloat over scene, and Caravaggio painted this twice. Because we all like a story that ends with some man's hair in the hand of a girl, his lolling, half-open eye. We like her unsullied shirt. We admire the placidity of her dutiful face. I learned from my surgeries that the body is nothing but a gurry of sin, electrified tendons that tug at the pouch of the heart. What did you do? The healer asked while I sat bandaged up on the bed. What did you do to cause your cells to explode? What are you holding that you need to let go? I couldn't explain. My body was some kind of lot sold as a block. My head was a knotness tossed in the grass. My head kept dripping blood from its neck. A man called me by name. A man said, wait here. A man said, stay still. How much can one body take? I said, get your hand off my neck. I said, you cut me off in the middle of something I was trying to say. I said, this inhale is heavy like tar on the street. I said, that fury outside is something I birthed. I was not acquiescent, but still. I radiated, I burned, I resisted the takeover of body by body by body. I seduced the cells of myself. I saved the village of myself from the invading horde of myself. I became the glass I saw myself in. I'm my own head hanging in the gloved fist of my hand. I have a sword in my skirt. I wait outside my own tent and caress what remains of my throat.
I've been prey for most of my life. In the subway, a man pressed against my hips. On the bus, a hand on my thigh. Someone's sweat drips onto my pores. Eyes lift up my skirts, crawl inside my shirt. At home, my mother's uncle tangos his legs between mine. Let me show you. Get closer. My hand in his other hand, I don't remember. My mother howls, pounds her fists on his chest, pulls our shadows apart. She knows what it is to be hunted, to dodge the bullets of others' desire. We shroud ourselves in silence, and still they come, call us names. Virgen, puta, madre, puta, hija. Don't let them touch you. Don't give yourself away. Don't.
Damn, you guys. Yeah. The woman in the white chador stands on the flat roof of a house in Mausoleil. Perhaps she left lunch behind on the stove to edge out onto the layer cake of terraced houses on the hillside, one row above the other, roofs turning into roads below. She is not an idea. Erect, draped, one arm crosses the bright white of her chest to hold the swath in place as she looks down. Leucistic bird, occurrence. The windows below her are wide open. The fog rolls up the hill below us, peers over our shoulders and into all the houses as if to move us inside. She could call us to prayer, and I would. She was born where I wasn't. She is so white, she shines through the muck of others' disbelief. The day stays foggy. She is not an idea, and I didn't put her there. She's not there to jump. She's there to say she did not jump.
I'm going to read part of a longer poem. It's called Diaspora Suite, and it's based on my experiences living in San Diego and visiting the border and watching families be basically torn apart. And, you know, mothers on this side, babies on the other side, grandmothers, couples. Also a wedding where one person was on one side of the border, the other one on the other side. Diaspora Suite. There's an invisible linea where mouth clamps every syllable shut. Speak English, get papeles, reel in your R's. Stow all secrets under your tongue. Hide them from the ones invading your mouth. Stand at the threshold. Show them crossing is not transgressing. If you waylay light, it becomes a part of you, dissecting body into face, arms, hands, feet, and other unnameable objects. The officer sorts bones in an orderly fashion, femurs and scapulas in a humerus disconnected from its radius. One sternum polka-dotted by bullet holes. He tags the bones with green pieces of paper that don't translate into cards, a living wage, a hospital bed. He flexes his muscles, ripped from chasing the ghosts who left behind this mess. He couldn't catch them, grab them, grind them so there would be no evidence like there is now. Sand, dirt, and marrow. Dust of my dust, says the Bible. A goat's carcass doses on hot coals, flavors infused by soil and dung. Men tear meat pinked by the setting sun. They drink aguardiente, slice grains of sand with their blades, toss them in the water to exercise their fears. Living on the border, they grow stories from seed, toss them over the fence, losing La Llorona and Huitzilopochtli on the other side. If you swallow a fallen star, you can cross on the back of a flying coyote, they tell the children, like Aladdin and the genie. They never tell them El Norte means nowhere.
Dang.
They can't.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, you're so nice. Okay.
I name the 8 muscles of my tongue. Agnost. I was slow to understand the phrase, I speak for myself. How to believe what I want to say. Half of my tongue, a late bloomer. The tongue has 8 muscles which move it, 4 for shape, 4 for direction. Diatom. Before I am 5, I have the sounds of 2 alphabets in my mouth, but after I am 5, speaking is exertion. I choose English. My aunt, pinching my cheek, sits sullen in the back of my mouth. My grandmother's loving questions lodge between my canine and molar, a throb. Salt cells. My mother utters lines she believes she needs to, words formed in her lungs at birth. Her life unfurls in sentences, dictation, as told to's. What does she find in translation? Into English, and Spanish and German, Italian and Czech. So many tongues. Can she remember herself with just one? Allium. My sister's mouth says more than I do, exhales vivid holler, calls us all to hear. I hear her and forget the taste of my own sorrow. Imagine I'm healed, my suffering surpassed. It was always this way. I don't remember how it happened. My sister's mouth, my answers. Lipid. I might have reminded myself to ask question after question, talked over all the voices who seemed not to listen. If I had known this as a child, I might have ached less for company. I wanted to know things, so I asked. Not everyone felt this way. As cells slough off in the mouth, they leave traces behind to be sopped up or swallowed. I don't change. I will always want to know. Chalk. This muscle tells my secrets, if they're told, cupping truth to keep it close, prevent it from being swallowed. It knows, though sometimes it doesn't know it knows, what the limits are to telling. I want to speak in a room where someone might always be yelling, how fast to let things out, who to talk to, what danger lies underneath. Brine, the place that remembers things the mind might not have learned. Tart shame of thinking too hard about myself. Metallic swig of betrayal. Like my girlhood fears, it lives unnamed. Still, it spills what it knows. Slack. I learn to taste the truth in secret, give over to mute bliss. What is silent dwells on the names it gives each of its selves, lets them linger to get them right.
Sternocleidomastoid. If I can live without myself, what else can I live without? Trees, no breath, but lungs, not. My friend's dad growing up had one lung. I thought about that. My cousin had no kidneys. We're all missing parts. But my question is, when does the missing become all that we are? The crow shrieks from the wire, me with talons. Imagine something called soul cut out of night and pasted on day, foul bird, ghosts, the grass under the feet I still have, dirt under the grass. Thing is, I feel connected to you. No tendon or cervical spine, but I've, whatever, spent time with your body. I felt your body inside mine, inside your body, inside mine, appendages and crevices, body inside a body, wheel inside the old wheel. Sex is weird, says the crow from his wire. How crows make love, I type in, photo of crows stacked. Will I talk to you when you're dead? Will I visit your grave or some beach where your charred bones lay at rest? Will you be eaten by crows, vile, but everything that falls on the earth becomes earth? You know who you are, and you also know who you are, me. Will I talk to sand? Will you talk to me when I'm sand? Sometimes I go to the gym. People at the gym push their bodies hard on machines, same way I push against you, special you. In the night, I hold on with all my might. I want is wanting all that we hold with our life. Is appetite all that we are? Will I be fed? In the end, will I feed? My friend's dad had one lung, but his mother had two. Together they lived a long time, sharing three. They sat in their house. Same with you and me. We sit and wait for our wife, her 2 lungs, the wholeness she holds in the hollow she has. We glance at the birds, the balance they make on the way we connect. The photo of you vibrates my pocket, a ping from tower to tower, and I'm between you and me, all of the yous, all of the me's, a neck without itself, an open space under a floating mind, a speck in the sky, faint as a heated up cloud, a dim knowing, once there were so many birds on so many wires.
Sword-shaped heart. In the Birder's Dictionary, I read about a bone near the bird's heart called xiphoid, meaning sword-shaped. My fingers reach for my ribs. If my father's anger were shaped like his swimming pool instead of a sword, he could sink down under the surface and listen. I could return my sword-shaped heart and pick out something else. If my husband's pain were cup-shaped, he could add milk, then drink. I'd cut out my tongue and grow a more tender one. If the martyr's vision landed on his mother's oleander, he could soak up the rich scarlet of its flowers. His mother could join him. They could stare and exclaim. I could dream up a new language to speak to martyrs. If all the fathers could find themselves on the maps they're born with, they could free their eyes to look that way. I would wait on the road, ready to paint a ruby X to mark their spot.
Wow, I got lost in that poem and lost my place. I thought it was stem. Her body also is connecting ground to bloom, the veins and length, the water up and down. When she was seed, she huddled in the dirt, feet reached for the underside. Back then, the sun was. Pain is stored this way, not in the memory, but the amygdala. What is body but a battery of tremors? Back then, song. What she doesn't recall grows to tumor in her throat, words for things stuck in there like wicked bones. What she wanted, she gained by growing. Her body was marked with nodes. Her body danced marvelously in wind. A woman comes from where? A woman becomes what? A bloom of a head that petals fall from, a seed pod head at the desiccated end. She connects this idea to that. She stands tiptoe at the beach and the horizon lifts just slightly more. One might say our bodies change the world, brief combustion in the dirt. Her feet are roots, her head comprehensible as cloud. She lay down in the murk of her, sickness leaking in her throat, a windpipe without wind. What is life but a practice of bending down to die? She slept, she ate, she bought some land, she built a house. She was tall but shortened. Briefly, she tended children, tree of children, meadow child, fruit in mouth of child. A human face, the greeting that it makes of teeth. Like the verb, living is a trick of action. What she imagined might have happened, the up and down of stem, the wavering of stem. What a brief summer that was. How plants communicate through roots, how she imagined some nights she might discern a click, a groan, how sickness slowed her wit, sharpened her quick. What does a woman have? A heart, a node, hands like fragile leaves, a tendency, a willingness to lay down in the dirt. The nature of stem to be straw, the fate of stems to be cultivated into earth for next year's grass. The stars hang upside down. The earth becomes a sky. The earth, you know, is heaven. That summer she was a line, a golden green connecting rock to rock. The lake that summer, the house, the table, the wine they drank, the lips she painted poppy red. The world so drunk on self. Petals on the ground for one glorifying day. How brief beauty is and will be briefly then and then again.
Arches. My mouth opens for the drill. I clench my fists to block a childhood memory. Same office, different doctor, more pain. It helps to think of the dentist as an architect repairing structural cracks so the maxilla won't topple onto the mandible and speech can remain able-bodied. An arch holds the weight of whatever is above it. My mouth embraces every two-tongued word that translates self for others. If my teeth fall, my world collapses. The doctor tells me I am deceiving myself, but there is no substitute for bone. In the waiting room, an older woman who's lost all of her teeth said she had to learn to modulate by peeling back the skin of each syllable. Her tongue slithers between worn pillars, licking each word into perfection.
Pleats. Sister, let's fold time back on itself. We can pleat it. We'll push our needle through the fold, find silk pants and ruby thread, pull the Qajar dynasty toward us with our stitch. Loop under to anchor, punch the needle through again, and look for Farouk's poems. We'll add a flourish and move on, hips thickening with the ornament of our history. We'll go back and visit the forced unveiling when our sisters watched their futures arrive like we do, soak our fabric in the tears of change, how quickly it absorbs. We'll bring them code that needs translation, miniskirts and thigh highs, words on the tongues of our men we need to solve. This pleat can turn under, part of the structure of the dress itself, pinned with a stitch of our hair to show it was us there whenever the unraveling comes. When we reach back into this orphaned future in which we tuck ourselves, we'll pin both sides of the rousserie at our chins to free our hands and slip things into our hems. This smartphone, that Excedrin PM, a degree in computer science and math, for what good they do.
Work that they do. Yeah. This is an epigraph from Ariana Grande from her song God is a Woman. I don't want to waste no time. Yeah. My daughter, 17, is away for the night, out with her friends. But when I wake up at 5:30 a.m., the light in her room is on, and her clock radio is blasting Ariana Grande, and I feel sad about her ghostly absence and everything that's lost or going to be lost, although at the same time I feel happy as it's early morning and I like early mornings, and because it's a kicky little song on the clock radio. You love it how I move you love it how I touch you. At the same time, my dad is dying up north. He's bedbound and addled and sleeps most of the day, pale and breathing with his mouth wide, astonished looking like maybe he sees God already. He's been there for months now in a rented hospital bed set up in my sister's childhood room, and my mom spends her days waiting, playing words with friends, and arranging the caregiver schedule. I talk to her most days on the phone and make plans to go up and see him, which sometimes I keep and sometimes I break. You love it how I move you. And I think she means desire is really God in that song, which is an interesting point and might be true. Desire drags us through our days, so we want tomorrow, even as tomorrow brings us only closer to death. But we are fools, I guess, made foolish by God, made less happy by our own worshipful wanting. Anyway, all of it seems to disappear when I turn off the music and the light. Even Ariana Grande mutes and shrinks to her space inside the radio. All things diminish. I want coffee, but I know even when I pour coffee and drink it, I'll want it. I'll keep wanting. Maybe that's why my dad is dying with his mouth open. He can taste the last sips of life on his lips, and he would like someone to pour in a bit more. Or maybe he's trying to think of the right word to explain what he sees from his view at the brink. Or he's gathering an inhale that will exhale to an eternal guffaw, because surely we get the whole joke in the end. That wanting is the same as losing, and having the same as letting go. The light off or on, the music blasting a dream of the past that shakes us awake, how our having is had. The clock radio on, the urn of ashes up on the shelf, the suitcase, the calculus, the convenience of God, a swishing around in our chests. Yeah, it lingers when we're done. Yeah.
Water rituals. Abuela's body a husk, like the corn we wash, dehair, and cook for hours. River water, she says, for the baptism. Her child dead at 7 from malaria. Abuela, a nurse, couldn't save him. River water, she says again and again. She wants to wear her navy blue polyester dress for the baptism. When we were children, we baptized our dolls with holy water. Now, all we have is a ghost child, and we play, dress Abuela up, rub camphor oil on her skin, her arms and face polished slick as a river stone.
Oh, I think that's
Final round.
fine. Face plant. I felt, is everything okay?
Is it sound?
Oh, they can't hear
They
Farnaz?
can't hear you. Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay.
When I read.
Am I too close to mine?
No, you're
Okay.
good. Apparently.
Faceplant. I fell twice this winter, and both times smashed my nose, greened up the belly of an eye. Once face first on a concrete parking bumper, once out cold on the basement floor. The first time I fell, I thought I should have practiced falling. The second time I thought I did. Why do things live? My daughter asked me when she was 7. I was young too, I guess, when she asked, because it all seemed easy. Things live because other things die. She looked up. I was much taller then, less fallen. I looked down. Like compost, I said. She ran off. I sat in the shade. Try, I said to myself, alone on the floor, blood in the mug of my hands. Try, I said, alone on the ground, the trampoline street, the unreliable down. Try. My dad died that same winter. Once I had daughters, once I was somebody's daughter. Things live because dirt. A shattering way out in space, and a shattering later inside the blister of being. The question is why. Something breaks, a carapace, carpal, seed of my head, pod of my tongue, the mouth inside my mouth, the old wheel. Hold on, old world, I said, and I grabbed it, embraced it face first, eyes first, mouth first. I seeded the dirt with syllable teeth. I planted myself. I exhaled. I loved this place. I grew.
This poem is for all of those people who have been told to go back to their country. And it's my angry poem. I am not leaving. There's a brittle quality to plant life, a browning that disintegrates to the touch and sticks to the skin. I am not from this land, but off it, the body an unwanted guest. I've learned to ignore the glare of morning, to read the glyphs of ashes, to groan with a coastal oak. During the summer months, the hawk's quiet, and my oral map feels incomplete, disjointed, yet alert to the smallest glimpse of a fir sprouting in lieu of life, or maybe because of it. A farmer once told me about prescribed burns, and before he explained, I thought of a pharmacy prescription no one would refill, which shows how little I know about the subject. I've come to understand that in this land, fire consumes to make space for new language, one I cannot speak. So I touch the surfaces around me, whisper incantations, wave my arms above my head, baptize myself in whiskey until my skin begins to peel like the crimson leaves of a maple, and all that is left is the crusty skin of old earth. Under it, all the words at my disposal.
Get really close to the mic here. Nusha June. I tell the chef of the house how delicious her food is, and she says back, Nusha June. A blessing that goes deep, a giving back of more than just the meal. Nusha June. I say it now. Sometimes I just say it in my head because I know the person eating my food doesn't know what it means. But I mean it. It comes without me ever learning it literally. It comes from wanting to keep the gratitude in the open, not shy. I want to explain. It has little to do with so kind of you to say. It's close to, you've tasted my love and given it back to me. I give it back again. I deposit it deep inside you. I knew all that before I ever had to ask. I even knew it when I pronounced it wrong, said moosh, a word for cute, because I could tell how sweet it sounded. I learned it before I learned it. When I say it now, I want to say it raw. I don't want to stop myself, even though I often do. I am intimate. I want to sound like all my aunts, whoever said it to me. Hear my love in your ears. Swallow it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can't really see you, but we'll take questions.
Yeah.
Or can we ask each other questions?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Farnaz, I was just wondering if you could talk about the woman in the white chador, like what that line, she is not an idea. Can you just talk about how you wrote that poem and what it means to you now, and if, like how you wrote it, what it means to you now, and if the meaning has changed at all, given your reading and what's happening in Iran right now? I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's about the woman in the white chador is the question, and specifically the line, she is not an idea. So I can say a lot, but I probably won't say it very articulately. I wrote that poem based on a woman I saw in a white chador standing on the roof in Mosuleh, which is the town in the north of Iran. And so I saw her and I thought I had never seen a woman in it didn't have flowers or anything on it. We see a lot of different prints in Iran, but it was all white. Maybe it was because she was so far away, but I'm pretty sure it was all white. And she was like a ghost, but she was so real. And she, totally stopped me in my tracks. And I took a picture of her because I was so moved by her. And but I didn't ever need to see the picture again. I found it recently, but I was thinking about the way that just that woman in that small town, in that visit in Iran in 2001, blew my mind. Like how my own understanding of somebody from the country my parents and all my family is from had shifted because there was somebody who was standing on a roof. I mean, it was like it asked me to ask myself, what do I think about women in Iran? It was really like an opening to sort of keep thinking about. That was 21 years ago when that happened. So who are the women that I am from, and who are the women that I am part of, and who am I not? And so it opened up a lot. I mean, it was probably it probably helped eventually help think about the whole book. But now, I mean, what's important about the poem is that you can make things into symbols and then flatten what they really mean too easily. And when I said she is not an idea, I was like, no woman is just an idea. Like I was really just feeling like this is really important. It can't just stand in for something. It is, she is a real person. And so that's sort of the main idea of it. But what I was really thinking about was, this is not somebody about to throw themselves off a building. This is someone who came out for fresh air or, to sing or to pray. I have no idea, but that's not what so you can trick yourself, and I can trick myself into thinking things about a whole bunch of people. And it was really important to try to get out of that. And so that's where that sort of impulse of writing the poem came from. And now when I read it, of course, in the climate, in the like what's going on in Iran and the way that we still have symbols of women coming from Iran. We have art that's really great art coming from Iran right now, but they can all mean things to us in ways that they might not really mean for them. And so, but I think that there's lots of positive ways to read a lot of the things we're getting from Iran. And I sort of lost my train of thought. What I really think that it's amazing to me that we're finally getting lots of images of strong women from Iran, like in the United States media. I think that's fantastic, even though it's taking a lot of death and oppression for that to come out. I'm going to stop talking.
Wow.
I don't know if that helped.
That was really nice. That was very helpful.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, thanks for writing that.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
I got here kind of late, so could each of you say a little bit about yourself? Like where you from or something?
All of us?
Yeah, each of you.
Yeah.
I come all the way from Seattle once a year.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm a poet too.
Oh, welcome. Do you want to hear about?
I want you too.
Oh,
Well, I grew up really close to here. I grew up in Santa Monica, and then the last year of high school was right on the other side of Venice Boulevard from here on Mildred Street, if anybody knows the area well, and have lived in Santa Cruz ever since. My parents are both Iranian, and I've been. Yeah, that's it.
I grew up in Venezuela, but I came to the U.S. as a child, went back, and now I live in San Diego. And I've lived pretty much all over the U.S., so east, west, and south, and mid.
I grew up in Northern California, Mendocino County, and I live in Santa Cruz. And Farnaz is my friend. And Liam's my friend now, too. But I think that's how I got to meet.
I have a question for all three of you, actually. Each one of you in your poems, from what I've heard, touches on a lot of things that feels like started when you were little. It's a voice that came up from when you were young. When did you find that voice? Did you not realize? Did you have it with you the whole time and just finally found the way to articulate it in words as you got older, or have they just sort of stayed with you, waiting to come out? Does that make sense?
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's a good question.
I think for me, childhood experiences determine a lot of the way that I see things now. But also, my child's self is more willing to tell the truth or things as they happened. And so I think for me, it was important to let that come through. Because if I started doing it from my adult self, I started censoring myself. Like, nope, don't say that. Or maybe you shouldn't tell that part of the story. So when I let my child self speak, it's just like, well, here it is. You know, you can do with that however you wish.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and that is an interesting answer. I think, especially with this book, which is came from starting to write about, first of all, just my neck and human necks for complicated reasons, and then things like secrets that I've had and things that have been hard to talk about. And there's that adage that I think might be true, that a writer's a person who wasn't allowed to say something as a kid. So I was just making a joke in my mind about my friendship with Farnaz, because I think I don't know why I've devoted my life to poetry. I think it's to try to get to that, whatever that kid is trying to say. Like, I think I protect myself a lot. I'm not a natural poet. I would like to protect myself with like humor and space. I'm kind of defensive. And that kid in this book especially wants to get out, I think, or is trying to get out. And I mostly just try to keep her quiet. I feel like it must be a lifelong journey.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. When I was listening to you talk about that just now, I think I'm the opposite. I think my kid self never knew how to tell the truth, or never knew how to speak her truth. And so writing has been a way to let her talk, and let all parts of me talk. But I really think it's interesting reading tonight. I was really just thinking about all three of the bodies of work and the way that we're also talking about expressing ourselves without language, like, or the underneath of words, that things you can never really put into words. And I think poets are probably always struggling with that, so that might be why it's coming out and I'm hearing it. But I think it's gonna always be this question for me, like, am I saying what I really mean? And I'm always curious about that.
That's what I was kind of what I wanted to ask you guys. But I just finished reading Brand's The Blue Clerk, and the idea of the split left and right selves, of like what we edit out and what we allow ourselves to write. And so what you're saying now is, but I wonder with taking this approach of grading a graded performance, if somehow
Oh, well, it's a pleasure of like losing the delusion of self. I think, you know, I think that hearing that it's collaborative, that we're just like data points of one being in different places, and Leo, that poem about the diaspora, what is it called? The diaspora
suite.
The diaspora suite of like the, I'm not going to remember it right, but the bodies, like how they were fragmented across the border. I don't know if that answers it. That's maybe a side thing, but yeah, because that is not a pleasure, but the pleasure of like listening to that poem and understanding that my interest, the way that you're seeing the world, with the what you witnessed there and what you wrote down, none of it belongs to any of it. Like their experience, you witnessed and we all share, and the just obliteration of the ego. Nothing I'm saying right now makes sense very much, but like there's something about braiding it that allows it to be interchanged and open and
Part of something else. Like it acknowledges the truth of that we're part of each other, or we're part of something bigger.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that, and that's very satisfying.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I felt like a dolphin. I had these clicks in my head, you know, like listening to your poems and then I was like, oh, that's where, you know, like I've read their work and I made the connections, but then listening, you make a whole other set of connections, which is beautiful. It's like, oh, yes. You know, the I'm not gonna say it.
That
wrong,
you don't
but,
have to say
yeah.
it, yeah.
So yeah, like the body parts, you know, and how they connect. I felt like the poems were body parts, and they were sort of creating this bigger body that doesn't really belong to us anymore. It's just out there for, you know.
Yeah, somatic.
Did you start with poetry, or did you come to it from other forms? How young were you?
Guess we started with.
Yeah.
I, as a writer, I started with poetry. Haven't gone anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I used to write stories as a kid, but, you know, it's not like, formally I started with poetry, although I come from, like, I have an academic background, so I decided to go back to poetry because I was tired of this, like, structured, sort of oppressive form of writing, where you have to distance yourself from whatever you're writing, and I just couldn't do it anymore, so...
Yeah, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a spy, and so I wrote a lot for that. But I had Ferlinghetti's Coney Island of the Mind when I was like 12. I love that book. For some reason, when you're 12, I don't know if anyone's read that book. It's such a weird book, but I really loved that book as a kid. I don't know.
I now understand so many things about you that I didn't know before. I saw Ken had a question.
Yeah, I just noticed there were a lot of themes of separation and belonging. And do you think that those themes have come out in more recent years than they have in the past, or has that always been part of who you are?
Wow.
Has it been more intentionality before, or is it maybe just part of who you've always been?
I think it's probably gonna always be part of it in poems. I think for me, I think that question of separation, or I mean, because I'm a twin, also, I think that's, or maybe every sibling has that. I don't know. It's really, you know, how do I develop a relationship to the world? But I'm pretty sure that's not gonna, that I've been writing about that theme as one of several since I can remember, and probably always will. I mean, if I was gonna place bets.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I don't know the answer, if that's getting better, or like, are we are you thinking about like the political situation in the country of people being more alienated? I think about like, we used to knock on people's door, like we used to visit our friends.
Yeah.
I don't think that's, and now we just have to text each other and say, can I call you? I don't know if that was in, but I guess that informs writing too, like to feel work so alone a
or
little bit.
alienated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's so many levels to it. Because yes, as
Yeah.
a writer, you feel alienated. As a woman, the way we're socialized, you can also feel alienated from yourself, from your body, until you kind of learn to take that journey and reconnect with yourself. As an immigrant, you can feel disconnected and have to find a way to reconnect. So I think it never ends. Sort of like you're always searching and looking at it from different directions, and
yeah, it was fun to read your books and think about borders and bodies and traveling across and I think I love your first poem about what is transgress, like what's that line?
Crossing is not transgression.
Yes. Yeah, like when we cross both political boundaries, cultural boundaries, feeling alienated, feeling unloved, being called names, being, and then to live in a post-colonial world also is so weird. And like everyone's disconnected, and we are all like every field is a battlefield or whatever. So but I also sort of think things are getting better. I think poetry maybe is making things better. A little more intimate, braiding it back together.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
There's books out there we'll sign anywhere.
Thank you.
Please stick around. There are some refreshments outside, snacks, and like Farnaz said, the author's books are in the bookstore, and you can pick up coffee there and maybe some signing. All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I was thirsty. I was thirsty. Thank you. You guys are amazing. This is like, yay. Yeah, this is beautiful.
Elated, yeah.
Yeah. Now you won't be able to sleep.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really cool.
Thank you for bringing up that idea in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For paying
no,
attention
thanks,
to
Deb.
the way
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for writing books that, we
Oh.
feel connected.
It's so much, I don't know, it feels so different to do it that way, in a good way, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not like you focusing on your thing and doing your sequence and trying to like, how can I, kind of seeing what the artist, you're
Yeah.
sort of
Letting
measuring
go.
yourself, yeah.
In this week, you can let go into
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
bigger thing.
Yeah, when you were reading, or it was you, I was so immersed in the reading that I forgot that it was my turn. It was like, oh wow.
Right, and that happened to you.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, I had to walk up because they kept texting me, I can't hear Farnaz.
Oh.
What am I gonna do?
Had to save it. That was good.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was good. I'm glad you did.
Thank you.
It's totally.
And then my mom's like, can they repeat that question? I was like, what question? I wasn't even looking at the text message.
Oh no.
It's really good.
Thank
Oh,
you.
It's so crazy to have, it's great to get the book, but it's not the same as when you guys read it.
Yeah.
There should be a CD that comes with the book.
I know.
Like legit, like so you can
Audiobooks.
put it in. You know what I mean? Because nobody has CD players anymore.
Right.
But it's also the energy of you guys and the room.
But it's
like,
just the
it's so
way you
intimate.
guys deliver the poems, the deliveries, everything.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm glad you did that. That's my cousin Mitra.
Oh, nice to meet you.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah.
And these guys are, where's Mary Lou? Mary Lou and Steve are